So now we're going to move into learning outcome number 5. Learning outcome number 5. So let's go back to our syllabus. And in our syllabus, when we take a look at learning outcome number 5, it says here that we need to understand the activities of the service value chain and how they interconnect. So describe the interconnected nature of the service value chain and how this supports value streams. You're going to get one question on that. And then it says here, describe the purpose of each value chain activity. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 value chain activities. You're going to get one question on it. So notice that it's just simply about the purpose, the purpose, the purpose, the purpose. That's it. So as long as you know the purpose of these 6, then you're going to be able to answer the questions properly. As long as you understand the interconnected nature of them and what in the world a value stream is, you're going to be able to answer this question. All right, so let's dig into our service value chain discussion now. So, the service value chain. Let's go back to the best cakes in the world for any occasion right now. Right, what we need to realize is that I need to have very specific activities that is going to allow me to be successful. Activities like planning, activities like improving, activities like engaging, activities like designing and transitioning, activities like obtaining and building, activities like delivering and supporting. Right? And each of these activities are going to allow me to take the necessary steps so that way there I can go from someone walking into my store to someone having a very successful 90th birthday for their parents, or a very successful wedding, or a very successful sweet 16, or a very successful whatever other party they're trying to have at that point in time. So if I am not set with repeatable processes, procedures that are part of these activities, like plan, improve, engage, design, and transition, obtain, and build, and deliver, and support, then I'm not going to be successful. I'm not going to be successful. How do I take opportunity and demand and actually turn it into something that is valuable? That is where our service value chain comes into play. And where is that service value chain? It's right in the middle here, folks. And the service value chain is a model within our service value system. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this model now and just remember that this ball here is the same ball right here. So when we zoom out, or we zoom in, I should say, we're going to preserve these 2 balls here. And then this is the new model we're looking at right there. So let's go ahead and do that. All right. So with that in mind, what is the purpose of the actual service value chain? So it's an operating model for service providers that covers all the key activities required to effectively manage products and services. So it's your plan activity for managing products and services, your engage activity for managing products and services, your design and transition activity for managing products and services. How many of you have ITILv4 training? If you have ITILv4 training, do you remember the service lifecycle? Well, that service lifecycle doesn't exist anymore in ITILv4. And instead, what do we have? We have these activities. And these activities have aspects of that service lifecycle within them. Now, this is where I have to tell you, you need to be careful with your memorization of terms and definitions. And the reason why is because if you just turned around and said, ooh, we're going to go with activities here. If I see activities, I know it's the service value chain. Really? Well, take a look at this. A model representing how all the components and activities of an organization work together to facilitate value creation. So the service value system definition also has activities in it. So be careful with how you try to memorize some of these definitions. If you're just going to go with buzzwords and keywords, then make sure there's no overlap with buzzwords and keywords with another definition. So for something like the service value system, I know it's a model and it has components and activities, and it's about facilitating value creation. Facilitating value creation. Whereas our service value chain, we have key activities. Key activities for managing products and services. So one's about facilitating value creation based on the components and the activities, whereas this one is the key activities that we use for managing products and services. And so what do these activities actually do for us? It is these activities that convert inputs into outputs. Inputs into outputs. So let's say we have users complaining about something. Right? I use the word complaining. Complaining is not always bad, all right? So they're complaining about something. While we are engaging with them, we're gathering the information from them. We're gathering the feedback. We're gathering data based on what they are telling us. We're engaging. Well, now that I have all of that, that there was an input into the engage activity, then we can output that to something like plan, whereby we plan to make adjustments in order to fix whatever it is that they were complaining about. So what we gathered in the engage activity now gets outputted to the plan activity. So it's outputted to the plan activity, therefore it's an input to the plan activity. And then from there, once we've come up with our plan, right, then we could have that output goes to maybe design. Maybe it goes to obtain, right? The next activity. So what you have to realize here is that we can be inputting, outputting, now we're inputting, now we're outputting, and we're inputting, and now we're outputting, and we're inputting, and we're outputting, and we're inputting, and we're outputting, and we're inputting, and we're outputting. We're transitioning, input to output, and then maybe input, output, based on different things, right? So what I want you to realize here is that this is not something that is linear. This is something that will change. How you use these activities will change on a situation by situation basis. But if under the plan activity, you have your step-by-step procedures and processes that you go through under a certain situation, then when it comes time to execute that plan, you're already set to go. Same thing with engaging. How do we engage? How do we engage with this? How do we engage with that? How do we do this? How do we do that? Who? What? Where? When? Why? Like, if all those questions are answered and everybody knows what they're supposed to do that are part of engaging and they know what activities they can do and use and so on and so forth, well, then when it comes time to execute that, it happens. Same thing with obtaining and building. Same thing with delivering and supporting, right? So these activities take something in, and then we do stuff inside the activities. Now, we're not going to talk about what is happening inside these activities today. We'll talk about the purpose of the activities, but we're not going to talk about what might be a potential input and what we could be outputting in all of these. That's reserved for the higher level ITIL classes, and you won't be tested on the intricate details of activities here in Foundations. So we're going to stay focused on what we need to know, and it's what is the purpose of these different activities. So what's it going to accomplish for us if we do what's inside of it? So for example, you can think of something like this. When I go to obtain this, I obtain this from what? My pantry. When I go to build it, there's the building instructions. When I go to deliver it, I'm going to put it in a basket with a fancy paper towel. That way there we can absorb a little bit of the oils that are still dripping off, and I'm going to deliver it to the table. So I really want you to know these though. Memorize, plan, design and transition, obtain and build, engage, improve, design and transition. 6 activities. 6 activities. Know their name. This is not an activity. This is not an activity. This is not an activity. So what are the activities doing? We said convert an input to an output, but more importantly, we have now a consistent and repeatable way to take a need. I need Red Lobster Cheddar Bay biscuits, and produce a desired outcome. Happy bellies. Happy bellies. So what is the expected outcome of using our service value chain? What is the expected outcome of using our service value chain? Value. That's our expected outcome. Hungry? Perform our activities, create Red Lobster cheddar bay biscuits. Now we have value, we have happy bellies. That's all it is. What are we going to do? Step-by-step procedures, processes inside of those activities to accomplish our objective. So each of these activities are just the umbrella term. What you do inside is up to you based on your scenarios and situations. But your ultimate goal here is to take that input, opportunity, and demand, and ultimately convert it into the desired outcome, which is value. So first, service value chain activity we're going to talk about is plan. And remember, you just simply need to know the purpose. So for the exam, what I tell you and what you see on slide is what you're going to need to know to answer questions if you're tested on it. So what is the purpose of the plan activity? The plan activity is to ensure that we have a shared understanding of the vision, the current status, and the improvement direction. And it's about coming up with plans based on that shared understanding of the vision, the current status, and the improvement direction. So if you think about the continuous improvement model, what is the vision? Where are we now? Where do we want to be? That all comes in as part of the plan activity. Are you going to be tested on that relationship? No. Or we're going to want to be using our guiding principles always as part of this. But in the end, what do you have? You have plans you've created, policies you've created, architectures you've come up with as a plan for that, standards, a plan that we can then output to many other activities where we can then execute on this plan and do what we need to do. So what could be an input to the plan activity? Like I said, you don't have to know it for the exam, but policies that governments have come up with, and now that your governing body understands that, oh, we need to be in compliance with this new standard, this new regulation. Well, now we have to plan for that. So an input, right? Governing body says, you got to do this. Okay, we better plan for that now. Right? You might have consolidated recommendations and feedback from users through the engage activity. So now you have information that's been gathered by your service desk as part of the engage activity, and now you're going to plan to implement that stuff. All right, what about the engage activity then? Well, the engage activity is about engaging, communicating, collaborating, being transparent, having good relationships. So it's all about providing transparency and good relationships through active collaboration. We're focusing on the stakeholders' needs and communicating with those stakeholders. That's what we're doing. However you want to do it. So for example, your service desk, they're actively engaging all the time through various tools. It could be over the phone, email, chat tools. It could even be interacting with AI through systems. So that way they can be notified of different things. But it's all about the stakeholders' needs. We have to understand those stakeholders so that way we can engage with them properly, communicate with them properly. Collaboration, transparency, relationships, engaging. Design and transition, what's this about? It's about meeting expectations on deliverable requirements. What we're trying to do here, folks, is we're trying to ensure that products and services continually meet stakeholder expectations for quality, costs, and time to market. Let me repeat that. Continually meet stakeholder expectations for quality, cost, and time to market. Design and transition. So we have to design it in a way where the quality is there, the cost is right, and we'll be able to do so in a timely way. Same thing with transitioning. So the plan activity has a wonderful plan that we can then design in this stage and transition it when we're done. But it's all about these. If I can't do it, based on quality, cost, and time, then it's not going to be valuable in the end. People are going to be upset at me. Obtaining and building. The name pretty much explains what's happening here. You're either obtaining from a third party or you're building yourself. So it's focused on the procurement or building of the various service components. And it's all about ensuring that the service components are available when and where they are needed and meet agreed specifications. So if you're building it yourself, then whatever it is you're building, whatever it is you're doing, better be available when and where they are needed and meet the agreed specifications, or what? It's not going to be valuable. If you are obtaining from a third-party supplier, again, those service components better be available when and where they are needed to meet those agreed specifications, or it's not going to be valuable in the end. Deliver and support. This is really about day-to-day activities you are performing. Delivering whatever it is you need to deliver consistently, efficiently, effectively, so that way there it's valuable. And then if something happens, you're supporting it. So deliver and supporting is really about those day-to-day operational activities. It's about ensuring that the services are delivered and supported according to the agreed specifications and the stakeholders' expectations. So what are you doing to make sure you are delivering it? What are you doing to make sure you are supporting it? That's what this activity is about. And then we have the improve activity. So we talked about the continuous improvement model already today. Now we're talking about this improve activity. So this improve activity is a very specific activity that ensures that you are constantly focusing on continuous improvement. Of what? Your products, your services, your practices, even your own guiding principles, right? What are we always trying to do here? We're always trying to do things better, make things better, make it more efficient, make it more effective. So how can I do better? Keeping track of response times for this and that and downtimes for this and that. How can we make sure next time we cut maybe that downtime in half, cut our response time in half, things like that. So as we work with these different activities, this improve activity is a constant reminder to ourselves to make sure that we're looking for ways to do things better. So that way there, we embed this improve activity as part of our value streams that we're going to talk about here momentarily. All right, so those are just the 6 activities. You have what you need to know for the exam up to this point. Absolutely. I've hit them. I've checked my notes. I've hit them all. You're ready to go for that. But what I want to point out to you now is the concept of the value streams. All right, and the value streams are specific combinations of these activities, coupled with the various practices that we'll talk about later today to accomplish an objective. So each of these activities, we're going to have inside of these activities things that we must do in order to complete that particular activity for a very specific situation. So does that mean when it comes to engaging, you might have the engage activity, but based on this situation, you engage this way. Based on that situation, you engage this way. Based on this, you do this. Based on that, you... Exactly. And same thing with designing and transitioning. Same thing with obtaining and building. Same thing with delivering and supporting. Right? For this, we deliver and support this way, but for that, we're going to do it this way. For that, we do this. For that, we do that. Right? Your goal is to have consistency, though. So that way there, it's similar across the board. But, there are going to be times when you just can't have that. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So a value stream is basically that workflow, the step that you're going to follow when it comes to activities. So for example, let's say my family tonight decides to do spaghetti, meatballs, Caesar salad, and Red Lobster Cheddar Bay biscuits. We'll say that's what we decide to do. So we've engaged with each other and we have decided that's what we are going to do. And so we plan, so that way there we each have an idea of what we're going to be responsible for. So let's say my wife is going to do the spaghetti, my son's going to do the meatballs and sauce, I'm going to do the Caesar salad, and my daughter's going to do the Red Lobster Cheddar Bay biscuits. So as a result of that, we still engage. We engage and we have to revise our plan. So as you can see, I've gone from engaging to planning to engaging to planning. Why? Because we want to make sure we get the details down right. We want to make sure we understand everything. So So you see how we can go back and forth with this. Now, is this going to be something you document and write down? Plan and engage 6 times. No, absolutely not. Okay. I don't want to walk in your office and see things like engage, plan, design and transition, back to plan, back to engage. No, that's not what you're supposed to do. Okay. Right. So with that in mind, right, you have to consider the fact that you have a lot of flexibility here. And that's the point of this, flexibility, so you can adopt and adapt and accomplish what you need. But you have this high level overview right now of, being able to move around. So eventually we come up with a solid plan, and we all understand our roles, we all understand our responsibilities, and now we can execute on this plan. So when it comes now time to start making things, right, and the designing and transition activities, each and every single one of us are going to have our own responsibilities in that. Obtaining and building, for example, my daughter needs to obtain the box and build the Cheddar Bay biscuits. She's going to have to do that. But we all have to make sure that we're doing our parts at the right times. Could you imagine if my daughter made the Cheddar Bay biscuits at 1 p.m. in the afternoon? Or 1 p.m., obviously p.m.'s afternoon. So 1 p.m. And we're not eating until 6 p.m.? Well, that's no good, because they're not going to be delicious anymore. Well, they're going to be okay, but they're not going to be amazing anymore by the time we actually sit down to eat. So that's all going to be part of the planning process too. And if we all do our part, we all do our role, we all perform activities based on what we need to do, then eventually we're all going to be able to deliver at the exact same time, and we're going to be able to have the product and service that we are trying to achieve, and we're going to have value when it's all said and done. And so that's what I'm trying to tell you, is that you have now documented ways of doing things, so it doesn't matter who needs to do it, they can do it. Doesn't matter who needs to do it, they can do it when it's all said and done. So when I was building this course, I'm like, I could come up with some ideas here when it comes to IT related things, but I tasked some people in my organization. I said, hey, you know what? You don't really know a whole lot about ITIL, and that's okay, but here's the concept of a service value stream, and these are the activities. I want you to just come up with a scenario and see what you do. And I've left them in their raw form, and I just talk about them. So you can kind of get an idea of what this does, how the interconnected nature of the service value chain works. So they said, all right, so the internal QuickBooks server is unavailable. What does that mean? We have an incident on our hands. That's what that means. More on that later if you don't know what an incident is. But we have this demand now, right? This outage has triggered a need, and that is for us to restore that QuickBooks server. So the service desk ticket has been received. That's part of our engage activity. Now, depending on the service desk, they may or may not have the knowledge, know-how, scripts that are necessary to actually solve this incident right away. If they do, great, right? They are actually supporting it at that particular point in time. But if not, then what would have to happen? They would have to escalate this to the subject matter expert in regards to the QuickBooks server, so that way there it can be solved. So no matter what, though, it's either them engaging and supporting, or them engaging and then escalating and somebody else supporting it behind the scenes. So what are the activities? No matter what, right? If that internal QuickBooks server is unavailable, there's got to be some sort of support activity in there for us to support it, right? We're delivering it a certain way each and every single day, that QuickBooks server, that service, but how are we going to support it? And then let's say we restore that service, then what? We have to engage again. We have to let those particular end users know, hey, it's been restored, everything should be good now, go ahead and log back in and let us know if everything is fine. And so now, based on that, we have accomplished our objective, which is the value, right? So inputs, outputs, inputs, outputs, inputs, output, value, inputs, outputs, inputs, output, inputs, output, value, right? And then we're not done, though. Always remember that. Even though value has been accomplished, what about root cause analysis? What about improving, right? And that's why that improve activity is here, to always remind you, look, anytime something's done, go back and just analyze. Did something kind of trip up on us there? Could we have done it better? Could we have responded faster? Right? How can we improve this? And then let's not forget about customer feedback, right? Engaging customer feedback. So that's just an example of that, folks, right? And it's a very simple example, but it gives you a better idea of that interconnected nature. As you can see, these are activities, and these activities give you the opportunity to spell out what has to be accomplished under certain situations, certain scenarios. And then, under those situations and scenarios, you can react. And if you have stuff planned out properly, and you have the steps you need to take as part of the activities, then you will be more efficient. You will be more effective. And then as a result of that, the end users, the customers, the stakeholders have a better experience. Remember, you're offering a service, which means you're offering this all the time. All the time. In a perfect world, you wouldn't need this. Why? Because what you do in a perfect world is always going to be perfect. And it's always going to be of value. And nothing's ever going to go wrong. But that's not what happens in the real world. Right? You are delivering value through products and services. That's what you're doing. And stuff's going to happen. And as a result of that, this helps you get through that stuff. So that way there you can get back to this. And the better you are at this stuff, the better this becomes. All right, so service value chain contains our activities and is at the very center, very top of our service value system.